So we have Venture, Oasis, Slurp Rush, Squid Games? Well, I don't think anybody saw this coming.
You're watching Jakus.
So yes, Fortnite Reload's newest map is Squid Games themed, tying into the third and final season of the Netflix show releasing this year. There's a lot to unpack here, considering how staunchly anti-capitalist the show is. This is a wild crossover to exist, but I'm just gonna focus on the content within the update itself, rather than the somewhat horrifying fact that it even exists. There is a brand new map themed largely around the games. Artistically, this new map is a lot more contemporary than the other Reload maps, sharing Chapter 6's art direction. I don't really have an issue with this. While it would be nice to see Reload keep a more consistent art style, Chapter 6 is by no means ugly in any way. However, the contents of the map itself is where things get really interesting. This map consists almost entirely of brand new locations, with a hearty dose of Chapter 3 throwbacks thrown in too for good measure. The Labyrinth is most likely where a lot of games will end up. It's a sprawling underground complex that is, well, a bit of a labyrinth. It's super fun and scary to try and fight in here, when you're not really sure where your opponents are. They could be around any corner at any time. It's super chaotic. Square Meals is, well, a square, with all the food mascots present. I think the coolest thing, besides the legendary return of the Butter Barn, is these fake buildings around the outskirts that are actually completely propped up when you look behind them. This is a common theme across the entire map actually, such as at Phony Crossroads, a colourful, almost entirely fake version of Chapter 3's Coney Crossroads. I actually think that the idea of bringing back an off version of a previous location to play with your nostalgia is super dope. Also, Epic forgot to update this one tree from the Chapter 2 art style, and I think that's pretty funny. Designer Docks is where the phony cardboard items you'll see across the map are manufactured, and there are a ton of these, from hedges to rocks to dumpster bins to entire cars. I think in terms of pure environmental storytelling, Designer is one of the coolest POIs for me personally. Comparatively, Player's Power is basically just a great big grey factory. I couldn't really figure out the thing that makes this place special. There's really nothing interesting at all here. Red Greens is the island's farmstead, which rings very reminiscent of Chapter 5's fencing fields. The worst farm POI to date, so that's nice. Of course, the real appeal of this place is the hidden game of red light, green lights down below. Probably the most infamous Squid Game of all. Costly Condos is a very luxurious estate right at the edge of the map. This is a really cool spot. It feels right out of a previous season like Last Resort. I guess here is where you would buy a house if you won the Squid Games, right? Nearby is a grotto asset flip that eventually leads into the labyrinth. There's actually a ton of underground areas on this map, probably more than any other map in Fortnite history, and I love it. This is also the first Fortnite map to not have a spawn island in the traditional sense. The island is physically there, but the actual waiting area is underneath it, and good Gubo, that's a lot of bunk beds. Manager's Meals is pretty similar to Costly Condos, and geographically close too. I guess this is the upper tax bracket region of the island. Affluent Arrivals is barely a POI. It's 2 buildings, and a road, can't forget the road. I gotta give props where it's due. This map is incredibly well designed. Almost all of the new locations are filled out and have interesting gameplay dynamics, and the glaring asset flips are implemented in a pretty clever way. This map is full and diverse, with multiple biomes and a ton of smaller spots filling out the space between each major location. However, I think it's worth saying that this is the first Epic official map that really feels like it was made in creative mode by a fan to me. I can't really explain it. I think it's the way it's laid out and the mismatch of POI styles and positions. I'm not saying that's inherently a bad thing either, it's just a vibe I haven't felt with prior maps. A new Reload update means a new loot pool refresh, including the first ever Reload exclusive item, the Red Eye submachine gun. This SMG is only available in Reload. Not creative, not battle royale, not anywhere else. At least as of the launch of Squid Grounds. And it's literally just a red dot SMG. If you've ever used the Red Eye assault rifle in Chapter 4 Battle Royale or in Reload itself, this is literally the companion to that. but it's a really fun gun. It's a great gun, and I have a great time using it, but why is this of all things Reload exclusive? It's not really Squid Games themed. I mean, I guess it's the gun model the guards used, but there's no Squid Game branding. It's so random. There's also the currently exclusive uncommon variant of the Boogie Bomb, which lasts half the length of a regular boogie. And do you know what? I wouldn't even mind this thing being a regular placement into Battle Royale. Tell you what, I never really minded the idea of the Boogie Bomb being a permanent mainstay as a super rare item, and I think this version is even more balanced to be a long-standing placement. Speaking of items I want to see long-term, the itemized glider redeploy makes its grand return. I believe this is the first time it's been in any core mode since 2020. I always thought the glider item was the best approach to having glider redeploy in the game. It's a fantastic balanced trade-off, although I'm not convinced it's actually all that necessary to have in Reload. With the sheer number of fall damage cancelling items available in the loot pool like shockwaves and grapplers, it's less of an easy pick than it is in BR. But apart from the newcomers, the loot pool is largely the same. The Mammoth Pistol is still here and I am still disgusted. Of course, this wouldn't be Squid Game without any games to play, and there are a few secret games you can discover and compete in across the map. There's actually a pretty decent variety, but let's be real, you only care about red light, green light. Well, it's here. Almost every game awards 3 rare chests if you win, but considering the amount of good loot you can get across the map in general, I think these mainly exist just for fun. However, if you do all 4 games at the Square Meals POI, there's one game beneath each food mascot, you can loot the Golden Llama in the center for a mythic. And I got the Foundation's MK7 assault rifle. Safe to say, the Square Meals games are absolutely worth playing. They're not super challenging, one was literally just walk in a straight line. Engaging stuff. Squid Game Reload has also brought us a few new outfits to wear. Fortnite often makes new outfits to tie into modes they release, but I do believe that these are the first that tie into anything specific to Reload itself. Unless you count Reboot Man, I guess. But yeah, the skins are pretty cool. You've got the pink guards, main character syndrome, She Could Fix Me, and a ton of overpriced default variants. Again, selling skins based on this show is kinda wild, but then again, this collab existing at all makes me feel like I fell into a parallel universe after Slurp Rush dropped, because how? Eternal questioning aside, this is an incredibly well-made and honestly super solid new content drop for Reload. And although I am heartbroken that Oasis has been removed for the meantime, this is a fine time. Also, if your lifelong dream has been to jam out to Dexting as the woman from Squid Games, well damn it, do I have the game for you.